I live my life by speed and friendship because today we watched Sonic Adventure 2 at the theater. So Aiden, what's the plot of Sonic 3?
Sonic 3 is more of the same. Sonic is hanging out, doing his birthday party, and Shadow escapes from prison after falling to Earth in a meteor. And then they do a very abridged and toned down version of Sonic Adventure 2's plot where Eggman and Gerald start up the big laser cannon and Shadow is their little lackey. And then Shadow says maybe I'll be a good guy and Sonic says yeah, and they blow it up. It's like a very abridged version of Sonic Adventure 2. And they cut out all the edgy parts and don't take it seriously, and Jim Carrey hams it up as he does. Connor, what'd you think of Sonic 3? Sonic 3 of at least 4.
It was fine. The Sonic cinematic universe went from a movie where Sonic ran around in a human adventure. The movies have gotten increasingly less live action as they've gone on.
Yep.
This movie might as well be an animated picture because James Marsden is in maybe like 15% of the movie. I guess Jim Carrey's still live action, but a lot of this is CGI Sonic versus CGI Shadow.
Well, the next one's CGI Metal Sonic too, so
yeah,
we're gonna have no human in.
I mean, that's probably how they whip these movies out every 2 years on the dot to the day. No production errors, is that the guy just grabs establishing shots of Sonic in Tokyo or something, and then they CGI Sonic in off of an old model, and then they recolor the model to have Shadow.
Yep.
But I mean, I thought it was kind of interesting. The first two movies are kind of like not really that related to the games. This one is like a loose adaptation of Sonic Adventure 2. You got Sonic and Shadow. They're enemies at first. Shadow is a fake hedgehog, and Sonic and his friends have to do
Sonic
shit. Of course, it omits
a fake hedgehog.
It omits like big and stuff, but then they make the big
on Sonic
eggplant.
Adventure 2.
Oh, he's not. You're right. I thought he was in battle as a playable character.
He's in battle in the multiplayer mode.
Yeah. Well, a lot of characters were
Amy's
omitted, and Rouge and a few characters. But my point is, it's more or less heavily inspired by that. It has a bunch of the Crush 40 songs in it. It's got a new country rap song by Jelly Roll at the end. Like, it's definitely like a children's action movie. It feels like a cheap superhero movie, somewhat following like MCU tropes. I think if anything's commendable about these Sonic movies, it's that they come out every 2 years on the dot. There's no troubles in production. They get everyone to record their lines. They animate the movie around that. Meanwhile, there's a production studio that films the Jim Carrey scenes, the James Marsden scenes, and presumably like locations that they're then going to CGI Sonic and Shadow into, punching the shit out of each other.
Yeah, the second unit does the heavy lifting.
I did think there was some stuff that didn't really make sense in the weird Japanese Sega game from the early 2000s that gets translated here. Like Shadow and has like a girlfriend in Maria who's like, I guess, Dr. Robotnik's
girlfriend.
They're like holding hands and kissing, bro.
They're not kissing.
She kisses him.
They're like siblings. They're like
okay, whatever.
To have a cute little sibling thing.
I mean, it's just kind of like I don't know. It's strange how accurate they wanted to be to Sonic Adventure. It's kind of like when I guess like to compare to Marvel again, like when they did Civil War, where it's like not the exact same thing, but it hits the beats and the general idea of Sonic Adventure 2, which is really strange, like I said, because the rest of this, like, I guess they kind of sort of
the one that has an actual story going on.
Sonic 2 is kind of sort of adapts Sonic 3, but not really that much. I mean, Sonic versus Knuckles for much of it because
that's about it.
Knuckles is tricked, but This one more tries to adapt. I mean, the CGI is okay. It still looks a little flimsy, but Paramount has always had decent CGI. Like, Paramount somehow doesn't make half the money Warner Brothers does, but has consistently had a better CG department than Warner Brothers, which typically has the most trash CG. Not that that matters. I mean, it kind of does matter here, though, because all of the characters are CG. The character designs are fine. I'd like to see the first original Sonic design as for Shadow, though. Like, take that design and
I would have loved to see ugly shit.
Make it Shadow. But I mean, I don't really know what to say much, except kind of like Fast and Furious or something. They just whip these out, and the guy who makes these movies has pretty much exclusively worked in this franchise and nothing else. He worked on his directorial filmography is the 3 Sonic movies, the Knuckles TV shows, and like a short movie.
Yep.
I haven't seen the Knuckles TV show. I think it very moderately ties in here with like the hiding of the Master Emerald with the weird friend cop guy from the first movie who's like a minor character in this one, and there's like kind of an implied knowledge between him and Knuckles, so I would assume that happened in the show.
Yeah,
but for the most part,
show, as far as I understand it.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't see the show, but for the most part, it's pretty standalone. I think it's fine. It's got the clunkiness of Sonic Adventure. They've squared it into more of a movie. I think Dr. Eggman and his grandpa, Dr. Robotnik, are kind of a little bit too much at points. I think Jim Carrey didn't give a fuck, and they wanted to end the Dr. Eggman arc again because they ended it in the first one, and I think the second one, after his return, kept it more open-ended, what they were going to do with him. I think this one's pretty definitive. I think Jim Carrey, like, he never really did sequels in his day, and the fact that they got him back for 2 Sonic movies, it's a passion project. Keanu Reeves and all the voice actors are like, I have no idea why they're like, Idris Elba is Knuckles. Did it have to be Idris Elba? No. I think Ben Schwartz's Sonic makes sense because he's like a B-list TV actor who kind of has like that like squeaky voice, but is pretty good at like comedic timing and personality or whatever for this kids movie. I get him as Sonic. I do not understand Idris Elba as Knuckles and Keanu Reeves as Shadow.
They didn't want to whitewash Knuckles.
No, they didn't. And I respect
Keanu Reeves
that.
Kind of sucks with Shadow.
Keanu Reeves, like, he's never really. I don't know, like, how much voice acting he's really done, and he's not that good of an actor. Like, the thing that Keanu Reeves has always been good at is like, he's kind of autistic, so he's good at making like physicality in a role. Like, that's why people like him best for like the stunts he does in Matrix and the
John Wick
stuff he does in John Wick. John Wick and Matrix, he's quiet, handsome guy who can do incredible stunts and is a cool action star, and then people like Keanu Reeves extra because he's a nice guy in real life. But he's not traditionally known for like they didn't like motion capture him to play Shadow, and he's not like traditionally known for being a good actor. Not traditionally, not you know, he's a stunt type actor. I think Tom Cruise is a better actor, but it's a similar example to like he's in the same like genre of actor as Tom Cruise, where it's like he's got incredible physicality in his roles and he's charismatic,
and he has no range.
And he's got no range. So the fact that they're like, we're gonna strip everything out but his vocal performance, line reads being the thing Keanu Reeves has been most criticized throughout. I mean, the gimmick was they got Keanu Reeves. I remember the initial rumor was that it was going to be Hayden Christensen, which I think would have been epic. Hayden Christensen as Shadow would have been epic. If you're gonna have him, and Hayden Christensen's a shit actor too, but I think his Shadow performance would have been kind of funny, where this just sounds like a kind of mediocre voice actor, because like, honestly, except for when they kind of called attention to the fact that it's Keanu Reeves, I kind of forget it's Keanu Reeves. It's the same thing with Knuckles, where it's like Knuckles is just like basically a ripoff of Drax from Guardians. Big buff guy who's not very smart but has a good heart, but is also violent. I don't see why that needed to be actor Idris Elba.
Yeah.
I think a lot of the casting is more like who can we throw on the poster and have do press junkets. But like I do get the vibe from the press junkets that Keanu Reeves genuinely enjoys Sonic because he's fucking weird, like all of us.
Yeah.
Because the whole time it's just him and his wife there, and he's like, I'm so happy my wife wanted to watch this movie, and I worked really hard on it, and I really like the Shadow character. And then he went on a rant about how he doesn't want to do Star Wars, but he wants to keep doing his Shadow movies. But I mean, I'm sure he got paid a fucking lot of money to read like 30 voice lines and do a press junket about how happy he is to be in a Sonic movie, so who knows. So it was fine. I mean, they're all these movies are somewhat mediocre. I think the first one's the most movie-esque, but it's not exactly like the Sonic lore movie that 2 was to a lesser extent, but especially 3, which is just it's a attempt at bringing weird Sonic lore stories to the big screen. So Aiden, what did you think of Sonic 3?
Sonic 3 is fine. I recently played Sonic Adventure 2. It's probably the best a Sonic story has ever been, and made all Sonic fans into weird, story-obsessed weirdos who want every Sonic game to have a story, and they're all bad except for Sonic Adventure 2.
Okay, but in fairness, I think the Archie comics and shit like that really... But that's like the deep autists. Those are like the stuffy
Yeah, that's
fuckers.
like the mega autists, but like the fucking like...
That's like the stuffy fuckers.
The LS Mark type people who are all like... Every time they talk about a Sonic game, they're like, I wish this had more story. They're just thinking of Sonic Adventure 2.
Yeah. There's some level of story.
They had to kind of neuter Sonic Adventure 2. Like, Maria doesn't just get capped. They had to do it some pussyfoot way where like some jar gets shot and blows up and kills her. Kind of lame. Yeah, I mean, the action sequences in this movie are good. Sonic and Shadow are a good pair as far as making action sequences, because you can just have them run around and do fast shit. And then at the end of the movie, when they have a Super Sonic and Super Shadow face-off, they literally just rip off Dragon Ball for a little bit. And like they just copy Dragon Ball shot for shot, where they're like punching each other across the globe into the moon. It's literally just Dragon Ball. The first fight scene in Tokyo has a couple cool moments with the motorcycle chase. So the action is pretty sparse, but it's well done.
Ryan Reynolds might also be the most famous actor in the world in this movie, because I think they referenced Ryan Reynolds' Green Lantern movie and Detective Pikachu.
They did.
I think they might have done a Deadpool reference, but I could have just been thinking that they kind of ripped off Deadpool when they were doing the like fourth wall break. Maybe not ripped off, but got a little too Deadpool with it.
There's really only like 2 action sequences, or like 3 if you count the weird one where they break into the gun headquarters. Mm-hmm. And one of them is the motorcycle chase, and one of them is just becomes Dragon Ball for a little bit. Yeah, they kind of had to butcher it a little bit, because like in the original, Gerald's dead, and his big plan is this trick on everyone, and I guess it kind of is in this one, but it's kind of hard to take Gerald seriously as the villain, because in the original he's like a nice guy, and then after his granddaughter gets capped, he becomes evil, and you could never really see Jim Carrey being a nice guy, because he's like this weird comical cartoon man. And there's a prolonged Eggman versus Eggman fight where they have bug arms and punch each other. It's odd. It's strange. I don't know if they captured the gravity of Sonic Adventure 2. Also, they dropped the ball on the music a little bit. You know, right after Sonic and Shadow become friends in like 3 minutes, which to be fair is also a problem in the game. They play Live and Learn for like 20 seconds, and then they play Live and Learn again later for like 20 seconds. And then there's 10 minutes of Eggman stuff, and then they play Live and Learn again for 20 seconds. And they should have just done the thing. They should have just done the thing.
They should have just done like an exactly minute and 45-second fly through space blowing up shit scene.
Yes.
While Live and Learn plays like in the
Yes,
video
they
game.
should have.
No, I'm not being facetious. I'm saying like that's what the fans fucking wanted. We
That's
don't
what
want
I
to see
wanted.
it peace fed to us where
That's
you're
what
like
I
just
wanted.
getting into Live and Learn, you know, you're starting to be like, okay.
Yeah, and they're doing like these weird abridged versions where they're jumping around. No, you just do the thing, man. Just make the movie a minute and a half longer and just do the thing, you know?
Is this like
That's what the people came for.
you know, people for decades, it's kind of like Dune. People for decades were saying Sonic Adventure 2 is unfilmable. And I'm willing to say that there's a better adaptation out there. And I'm sure in 20 years, in like 2040, we'll see like the ideal Sonic Adventure 2
Yeah, man, it'll
adaptation.
probably be like just...
There'll be like a shitty one in the middle, you know?
Yeah, they'll make a shitty one,
It's like-
and then they'll do like an anime
They'll
adaptation
do like
that's
a
just one for
try,
one.
and it's like fine, and then eventually they'll just get it right. The like next generation's Dennis Vanille do like a 7-part, do like a 7, or maybe they'll do like a prestigious
Well, I mean, the nice
show
thing...
on like Disney, Paramount.
The nice thing about Sonic Adventure 2 is that the game's main levels have virtually no story, and it all comes in the hour-and-a-half long final story.
Yeah.
So you really could just adapt it and just kind of abridge the first like 15 minutes into the first most
He's
of the
like
game.
Bill Clinton, and then he's riding down the jungle, and maybe you could have a
yeah.
whole episode called Big's Big
They also,
Fish. I think they should just make like a shonen anime about it.
They had Shadow do his big sacrifice thing in this one, just like in the game. And in the game, he was gone for a couple years. Like, he didn't come back until Sonic Heroes. Like, everyone assumed Shadow was dead for 5 years. And they brought him back because he was popular. But in this
Yeah.
movie, they were too scared that people would think Shadow was gone, so they have a post-credits scene where it's just like the Batman vs. Superman one.
Where the dirt
Where-
lives.
Shadow's lying in his little hedgehog coffin, and the
Okay.
dirt starts rising.
See,
And they're
all
like, Shadow will return.
at risk of becoming a hypocrite, Batman v Superman was like Superman died, and we're doing Death of Superman, and our movie's like edgy, and this is like real life, and he's like Jesus. So we all knew he was coming back to life, but it also just felt a little cheap to kill him off and then immediately bring him back. Shadow, they imply his death, but I mean, it's also like a kid's movie. Like,
Yeah, that's
I'm a
fair.
little more fine with it. Plus, they're like, what's gonna sell more action figures? Because there's probably fucking Jack Pacific or whoever has the fucking franchise rights is probably looking at the graph, and they're like, we've noticed through survey of characters that die in movie to toy sales, there's a significant decrease. You have to have Shadow be set up as like the edgy hype for the next one, because like during Sonic Adventure 2, I think the idea was like he'd be a one-off villain and that would be it.
Yeah, but then he was
And
so
then he was
popular,
edgy
they
and
brought him
popular,
back.
so they were like, should we just do like a prequel or a spin-off? No, he's just alive. But
Yeah,
they decided just to say, fuck it. You all know he's coming back.
I think to some extent, even though they had to abridge it and change stuff, like, I wouldn't really expect the Bio-Lizard to be here. Because it'd be too much to explain, and these movies are more grounded, where, like, Sonic doesn't run through weird fucking fantasy worlds and
But the other thing
punch
too
robots
is,
constantly, but he, like, lives in a town with a guy.
if the movie just ignored the fact that the problem is you're kind of stuck with James Marsden and his wife, because the angle in the first movie is Paramount said Sonic was too weird, so we need a human actor.
Yeah.
And I also think it was made just before the Mario movie. I think if this was made after the Mario movie,
yeah, they
it would
just
have been
gone
full animated.
Yeah.
But since that wasn't the case, the first movie kind of pussyfoots around it, where it's like, oh, I live in Green Hill, and I'm blah, blah, blah. And then Eggman comes up, but he's like just Jim Carrey
He's just
skinny,
a
he doesn't really
guy
have his
with a
mustache,
robot.
and he's got like the fucking Macklemore hair, and he's got some robots, and it's like,
Yeah, you couldn't...
they pussyfooted around it. And then the second movie, they're like, what if we upped the special interest a little bit. You know what I'm saying? Added some more
but
elements.
you can't go full bio-lizard. You can't have a giant lizard pop out of the Eclipse cannon and start fucking...
Well, then I was going to say, but these movies also have to be made in 2 years, so it has to be like 90 minutes.
Yeah.
And like it's a kid's movie, so you don't want to go too long. And then the final thing is... You kind of got the problem where James Marsden and his wife are the dead weight, where like they're kind of grappled with him unless they want to kill him off, but that'd be a little dark for a kids movie. So like,
well, they just reduced their screen time where like they're in the start of this movie, and then Sonic, Tails, and Knuckles are like, "See you guys," and they come back for one part in the middle, and then James Marsden breaks his arm and goes to the hospital.
Like Sonic 1 is like a buddy cop movie that has where James Marsden's really horny for his girlfriend. Or for his future wife, and then Sonic becomes friends with him, and they go on a cross-country road trip, and then decide to kill Dr. Eggman because the government's after him or whatever.
Yeah.
And the second movie is just kind of a lore movie, but to a lesser extent, and still has James Marsden quite a bit. But like, this third movie's like, okay, now we just want to do
Marsden and his wife. They have
now we just want to do the Sonic because he like. They literally get picked up in a helicopter by Jessica Jones, and they fly off, and then. Like an hour in, they show in and they're like, just checking up on you guys, and like, we need you for our secret plan, and they're like, okay. And then I fell asleep for like 10 minutes, but I assumed they didn't do that much. And then they had like Mission Impossible masks on to like infiltrate the base or something, and then James Marsden gets injured as an excuse to have them out of the movie until the end, where they're like, Sonic, you did a really good thing befriending that Black Hedgehog.
The problem with not having the Bio-Lizard is that the big climactic moment where Live and Learn would play, like they have the big Dragon Ball fight where they're punching each other across the worlds, and they become friends and they turn super, and then they just fight like 100 robots. It's not very climactic.
Yeah.
Because they just punch. They're like battle droids where they're not a threat. And they just get completely smashed up in like 30 seconds, and then...
well, if it wasn't for Sonic and Shadow
but I don't know who you would have
around,
fight.
Shadow knows full well there's a 10-minute time limit, and they like cry together and talk on the moon for like 4 minutes. But like, maybe they could have just like... I don't know. But they start like flying through the fucking... Like, the Sonic pulls up and starts flying through the ship. Like, if I was Sonic, I would have beat Shadow, blown up the ship, and then...
They should have.
Then maybe go back and say, "Hey, it's no hard feelings, bud. You want to be friends?" Like that's what I would have done. In that
maybe they should have had old Jim Carrey turn into like getting a giant robot or something. I don't know. So they had some big thing to fight that was actually a challenge to them or something. I don't know. It doesn't feel very climactic. I guess the climax is the Dragon Ball fight, but then there's 20 minutes of movie after that.
The problem with the Robotnik stuff is I feel like Jim Carrey's like, I'm just gonna riff. I don't care if you write a script. Give me like 3 bullet points of what exposition I have to fit into my weird improv comedy, and hit or miss doesn't matter. I'm giving you one take, and then I'm gonna collect my $5 million per minute of screen time, and that'll be it.
Jim Carrey is really hamming it up here, especially like being based on a game that plays it very straight by Sonic standards. Having a scene where old Jim Carrey makes a giant robot hand and then spanks young Jim Carrey, and then they have a fight with bug arms. Jim Carrey feels like he's in an entirely separate movie from everything else going on.
Old Jim Carrey and young Jim Carrey look at the camera at the same time and say, wow, we're both played by Jim Carrey, and it's the first and only time in this entire series they break the fourth wall, and it just never happens again.
It's bizarre. It's bizarre.
Yeah, I don't know. I also liked, too, like, I saw the first movie, like, twice, I think. I still have only seen the second movie once, and it's totally evaporated from my mind, but the fucking motorcycle guy, so the Dr. Eggman's assistant, like, jumped through and like saved Sonic, and it's like, who is this motorcycle guy? And you think it's gonna be like a mystery through the whole movie. I'm like, is it like a different Sega character? Are they trying to do like some sort of cinematic universe, or am I just like forgetting something from the Sonic lore? Then he takes his mask off, and I was like, oh yeah, that guy was in the other Sonic movies. And it took me a second
from the first movie.
Yeah, it took me a couple minutes to actually like put together what his role was in the previous movies.
It was Eggman's love interest.
I think I've unironically seen the first Sonic movie. I don't think I think this is the first time in my life I've seen one of these Sonic movies sober. I think I was bringing booze into the theaters both times I watched them, because I was running the movie theater at the time, you know.
Yeah.
Loose laws. It was after work.
But yeah. I don't know. It's fine. It's a cute enough kids movie. It's better than the second one to some extent. Jim Carrey antics might be a little much for what they're going for. The action's good enough. James Marsden and his wife have been completely minimized.
Yeah.
It's fine. It's good enough. It's a cute kids movie, I guess. They should have done the thing with the music, but it's fine. Connor, would you recommend Sonic the Hedgehog 3?
I think you're really only gonna enjoy it if you're either a child or a ginormous. Like, if you. I would like to say I'm like I'm a Sonic enjoyer. I understand the franchise. I will not go so far as, like, in a relative sense, I'm not a Sonic nerd. I definitely have played a lot of the games, but like running real fast in the game is kind of the extent of my thing. But we played Sonic Adventure 2 so fucking much as kids on the GameCube that, like, I know that story like the back of my hand, and I know the moments they're homaging, and I have enough of a knowledge of the Sonic lore that I could tell there was a million Easter eggs. Like, some points they were just like ripping dialogue straight from the games.
Oh yeah.
So if you're a Sonic fan, I think even if you don't think the movie's great, it's kind of like the Sonic games where, like, yeah, objectively, like, the Sonic games have weird stories with, like, shitty voice acting and shit, but if that's the type of shit that gets your rocks off, metaphorically or not, whatever, you're gonna really enjoy Sonic 3. If you're a kid, you'll probably enjoy it because it's action, it's fun for the most part. Even when it's not action packed, it's Blue Hedgehog Man and Black Hedgehog Man and Tails and Knuckles and Dr. Robotnik cheesing it up. But if you're just like a normal film goer who's trying to, like, have a fun afternoon, like if your grandma just like, I want to watch a fun action movie, a fun movie for the whole family or some shit, you're not gonna get anything out of it.
Yeah.
Like, I feel like if I want to be put in a mind frame where I didn't, like, live like 90% of my life now knowing about Sonic Adventure 2 and having thoroughly played it like 50 times. I want to live that lifestyle and watch this movie because I feel like I'm going to have some sort of inherent bias where I'm like, yeah, it's kind of bad, but, like, it's fine. Like, it's just like anything that you've lived through, or, like, you've experienced so much. It's hard to, like, fully be like, what would I think of this if I just, like, came off the street and tried to watch Sonic 3? I think I'd think it was the biggest piece of dog shit ever, but
it'd be really weird to watch this because so much of it is just references.
Right.
Not even to Sonic Adventure 2 always, but to, like, everything.
I feel like this movie is probably
if you didn't know anything about Sonic, you'd just be fucking baffled when they do, like, reference lines and then pause for applause.
I feel like whatever, like, 55-year-old man at, like, the fucking Chicago Tribune or something that has to review this will be like, what the actual fuck? Like, I feel like it's probably been a bunch of, like, Sonic influencers and people, like, I'm sure more reviews have trickled out, but I mean, like, yeah, I don't know. It's definitely, like, I think the first movie is pretty universal as a movie. It's a universally okay movie. This one is, you need to be a Sonic fan. So, Aiden, would you recommend Sonic 3?
Yeah, I guess so. Kids and for Sonic people. Kids are gonna like it because it's got the silly jokes and a little bit of action. And Sonic people are gonna clap at all the references when they go to the Chow Garden and all that. And normal people are gonna say, oh, okay.
I don't think normal people say, oh, okay. I think they'll say, what the actual fuck did I just watch?
Yeah. So I guess if you fall into one of the two categories of being 10 or autistic, yeah.
If you're both, then you're fucking probably gonna.
This will be the greatest movie ever made.
This is gonna be a formidable life experience for you. I'll tell you that much.
If you fall outside of those two camps, I guess not. Like, I don't know why. If you don't fall into one of those two camps, I don't know why you'd see this movie. So I guess in that case, go with your gut and don't see it.
I like how they just remastered Sonic Generations, and they clearly should have just did a new surely awful somehow texture pack on Sonic Adventure 2.
I mean, Sonic Adventure 2 is already
or called it Sonic 3
everywhere.
the movie, the game.
And
Not on Switch.
And Shadow Generations.
Switch is where it needs to be.
Shadow Generations already recaps the plot of Sonic Adventure 2 and all of Shadow's other adventures because they wanted to do some weird Shadow brand synergy.
I suppose so.
For the year of Shadow.
Anyways.
But also they didn't include any levels from Shadow the Hedgehog in the Shadow game because they're embarrassed by that one.
Yeah.
But they included levels from Sonic 06, so I don't know.
Sonic 06 is worse than Shadow the Hedgehog. Shadow the Hedgehog's just fucking weird.
Yeah.
Shadow the Hedgehog's still bad, don't get me wrong, but Sonic 06 is like one of the worst fucking games I've ever played in its entirety.
Yeah, it's just not done. It's not even remotely finished.
It is way too ambitious to not even be close to done.
It feels like a leaked prototype.
Yeah, it feels like one of those things where the leaked prototype is like 80% done and it's highly ambitious. And by 80% done, they mean like 65% done and fucking just unplayably broken. Like, I feel like we died like 3,000 times in that game, partially from awkward, weird programming of the challenges, and like 90% of the time just like overt glitches.
Yeah.
And maybe like 5% of the time like actual like blunders.